Alex sat at his desk in the dim glow of the late-night office, the hum of computers and the rhythmic tap of keys the only soundtrack to his workload. He had volunteered for the graveyard shift at the small tech startup. Extra pay, he told himself. Though tonight he was regretting that decision. His eyes stung from staring at lines of code for hours, and his coffee had long since gone cold. Then his phone buzzed insistently on the mahogany surface. He glanced down to see an unfamiliar number, but on a night like this, every alert felt like a welcome diversion. "Hello?" he answered, attempting a polite tone that curdled into confusion as a harsh, mocking laugh spilled through the receiver. "Hey, Alex," the M-word called. "Pretty funny, right?" The voice was distorted, smothered by digital filters, but the cruelty of the slur was unmistakable. For a moment, Alex stared at the handset in disbelief, the algorithmic banter he'd been debugging dissipating in a flood of hurt. He rubbed his temples, pressing the phone tighter to his ear. "Who is this?" he managed, voice hollow. "Come on, man," the voice sneered. "Don't play dumb. It's me, Jake. You know I'd never really say that stuff. Just messing around." The caller mimicked a jolly tone, but the words echoed like nails on a chalkboard. Alex's stomach twisted. Jake was his oldest friend, college roommate, best man at his wedding, confidant through every misadventure. The notion that Jake would lace his phone call with such filth felt both unthinkable and heartbreakingly plausible. He sank back in his chair and closed his eyes, replaying every conversation, every offhand joke Jake had ever made. Had he missed something? Was this supposed to be some twisted rite of passage? He exhaled slowly, fingertips brushing the wood grain as if seeking reassurance. "Jake, if that's you, stop," he said, voice trembling. "This isn't funny." Static crackled. The voice returned, deeper now. "Fine, doesn't matter who. Just remember 31729 on your logs." Then click, the line went dead. Alex stared at the blank screen where the caller ID once flickered. His heart raced as he tapped at the phone's call log, noting the spoofed number. He pulled up the network diagnostics on his laptop and began tracing the packet headers, fingers flying across the keyboard despite the fatigue. Somewhere in the digital breadcrumbs lay a clue, an IP address masquerading behind layers of proxy servers. The thought that this might truly be Jake, or someone exploiting their friendship, sent a cold spike of dread through him. He leaned closer to the blue-white glow, determined to unmask the prankster. If it was Jake, he needed to hear an apology. If it wasn't, he needed to know how far this betrayal ran. Lex spent the next morning shuttling between caffeine jitters and gnawing questions as he filtered through copious stacks of network logs he had pulled from the office's security server. The console glowed with scrolling text, timestamps, port numbers, packet sizes, each line a potential breadcrumb left by the mysterious caller. He created a temporary virtual environment to pass the metadata more safely, isolating the traffic to a discrete segment of the nightly backlog. As the server logs whirred to life, Alex's eyes flicked from raw JSON output to the line charts he'd spun up in his analytics dashboard, looking for any anomalies around the time of the call. It was like panning for gold in a river of bits, each false lead taxing his patience further. He noticed an IP address buried in a proxy chain, 192.0247. It wasn't directly Jake's home IP. He knew that much, but it had queried the office's DNS server twice within seconds of the call. A further wise lookup revealed the proxy belonged to a gaming VPN service, the same one Jake had bragged about using to play overseas matches with his esports buddies. Alex's heart sank as he mapped the proxy exit node to a data center in his own city. That was too close to be coincidence. He cross-referenced the timestamp with the company's indoor Wi-Fi log and found a connection from a device registered under Jake's company email at precisely 2:36 p.m. the previous day. His pulse thundered against his ribs. The more he dug, the more rotten the picture became. Jake's MacBook Pro, which he had borrowed to code a side project weeks ago, still carried the VPN profile Alex had configured for him. Every time Jake toggled the Quick Connect button, his device would emerge from the tunnel into one of those proxy exit points, even one that lined up exactly with the rancid slur that ended Alex's night. It was an ugly revelation that felt like betrayal twisting at his gut. The friend he trusted was literally routing hate speech through his own machine's credentials. Alex felt cold dread wash over him as he imagined all the times Jake had shrugged off complaints about locker room talk as harmless. He closed his laptop with trembling fingers, the screen's glow fading into the fluorescent office lighting. Around him, his co-workers, oblivious to the subterfuge, chattered about bug fixes and API endpoints. Alex forced himself to exhale. He needed proof before he confronted Jake, not just a hunch plus logs. He drafted an email to the IT security lead, marking the incident urgent, and redacting the hateful audio clip behind a secure link, then copied the raw network traces for verification. He planned to escalate the matter through official channels, but first he had to face Jake directly. That afternoon, Alex found Jake in their shared workspace, headphones around his neck, looping an anime soundtrack as he debugged a stubborn function. Jake looked up, a grin spreading when he saw Alex approach. "Dude, heard you had a weird call last night. Scared you off your grind?" Alex paused, looping the stethoscope quiet hum of servers around them, and said nothing. Jake's grin faltered. Alex drew in a breath and asked simply, "Why did your laptop connect through that VPN at the exact time I got called the N-word last night?" Jake's eyes flickered between Alex's face and the empty desk, realization dawning. For a moment, silence stretched taut between them, charged with the electricity of betrayal. Alex waited, watching Jake's posture stiffen, the mask of humor slipping away. The office banter and clicking keys receded into the background. As Alex braced for the answer he both dreaded and desperately needed, Alex's question hung in the air between them like a thunderclap. Jake's grin evaporated, replaced by a cold flush rising in his cheeks. He set his headphones down and leaned back in his chair, eyes darting to the code on his screen, as if it might offer escape. I don't know what you're talking about," he mumbled, voice tight. Alex's heart pounded in his chest as he dropped the stack of printed logs on Jake's desk, each highlighted line glowing with undeniable proof. "Please don't lie to me," Alex said low, gripping the edge of the desk so hard his knuckles turned white. "I traced the call back through proxies, and the exit node matches the VPN profile on your laptop. You were the one who called, Jake." Jake's face went pale. He ran a hand through his hair, dislodging a loose curl. "It was supposed to be a joke," he said, voice wavering. "I was messing around with that new voice app, trying to sound like one of those pranksters on YouTube." He laughed nervously, but the sound cracked like ice. "I didn't think it would hurt you." Alex's eyes narrowed. "A joke? You called me a racial slur and then hung up. You shattered my trust." He pulled up a chair and sat, leaning forward so his eyes were level with Jake's. "Tell me exactly what you thought would happen when you pressed dial." Jake swallowed. The office around them buzzed with oblivious colleagues. But for Alex, the world had narrowed to this moment. I heard about that guy who prank called his dad and ruined the relationship," Jake said quietly. "I thought I was just repeating a bit I heard. Figured you'd roll your eyes and we'd laugh about it." He looked down at the floor. "I swear I didn't mean that word as me." His voice cracked on the confession. Alex closed his eyes, the sting of betrayal and the weight of evidence pressing on his ribs. When he opened them, he saw genuine anguish in Jake's eyes, but also the aftermath of prejudice too casually wielded. "You weren't just saying a dumb word," Alex said softly. "You used my history as a punchline. That's not a prank, it's racist." He slammed the logs on the desk. "I gave you my VPN credentials because you trusted me. You used that access to attack me. What kind of friend does that?" Jake swallowed, tears glinting at the corners of his eyes. He ran his hands over his face and looked up. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I know it doesn't fix anything." He stood abruptly, pacing the small gap between their desks. "I don't deserve your forgiveness. I screwed up." Alex rose too, heart hammering with conflicting emotions. Rage at the betrayal, sorrow for the loss of a friendship that had spanned deeper memories than any code he'd written, and a hollow relief that the truth was finally out. He lifted the phone from his desk and waved the headset mockingly. "You owe me more than sorry," he said. "You owe everyone you've hurt accountability. I'm reporting this to IT security and HR. They need to know that you're capable of more than just a joke." Jake froze, his shoulders sagging. For a moment, neither spoke. Then Jake's voice cracked. "I'll do whatever it takes," he said, eyes glistening with tears. "Training, sensitivity classes, whatever." Alex shook his head. "I don't know if I can trust you again." He picked up his coffee mug, cold now, and drained the last bitter drops. Around them, co-workers paused at their keyboards, sensing the tension but not understanding its origin. As Alex walked away, his footsteps echoing against the office floor, he glimpsed Jake staring after him, shoulders trembling with regret. Alex didn't look back. The betrayal cut too deep, and he needed space to process the ugly truth that trust, once broken, doesn't simply reboot. He stepped into the fluorescent-lit corridor, and the chatter of coders and marketers faded behind him, replaced by the steady hum of his own resolve, to hold Jake accountable and to demand the respect he had been denied. The following morning, Alice's inbox flooded with an urgent alert before she even reached her desk. A terse subject line blinked in bold red, "Mandatory CEO Rotation Initiative." Heart pounding, she clicked it open to find a company-wide memo from Harrison & Co., Technova's majority investor, announcing an immediate leadership rotation. The missive cited a clause in their shareholder agreement empowering them to refresh executive direction by reopening the CEO search. Within seconds, another calendar invite pinged her screen. "Emergency board interview, 3:00 p.m. today." The invitation carried the crisp formality of a court summons, and both her own name and that of her rival contender, Thomas Brandt, were listed as early candidates for final evaluation. A swirl of emotions seized Alice as she closed her eyes and pressed her fingertips to her temples. Yesterday's vindication had been hard won, and now the ground shifted again beneath her feet. Her office, usually a sanctuary of sleek modern minimalism, felt suddenly claustrophobic. She paced between her floor-to-ceiling windows and the polished conference table, where she had first delivered her bold vision. Outside, the city skyline glinted in morning light, oblivious to the storm brewing at 47 stories above street level. The corporate communications channel crackled with speculation. Executives gossiping about who the investor really wanted, HR furiously rearranging interview slots, legal counsel drafting amended non-disclosure agreements to reflect the new CEO. Vacancy. Alice took a deep breath, grounding herself in the certainty of her experience. She'd built global tech from a modest venture into a billion-dollar enterprise. She'd navigated hostile boardrooms and negotiated cross-border deals. She'd transformed company culture and delivered sustainable growth. The knowledge that her credentials were unimpeachable steadied her resolve. She dressed meticulously for the afternoon summons, navy silk blouse, tailored charcoal skirt, and the one accessory that had become her talisman. The sleek metal card embossed Alice J. Carter, CEO and founder Global Tech Ventures. Sliding it into her jacket pocket, she smiled at her reflection and reminded herself that she was no longer pleading for opportunity. She was the opportunity the board desperately needed. Down in the executive suite, the atmosphere crackled with tension. Brandt arrived first, smoothing his tie and casting nervous glances at the brass plaque on the door. "Boardroom A." Soon after, the two Harrison partners strode in, their presence commanding immediate attention. Alice entered precisely at 2:58 p.m., nodding respectfully, yet confidently, as she took her seat opposite the panel. The senior board chair shuffled her notes and looked up. "Ms. Carter, as you know, this session is at the behest of our investor. They seek a proven leader to guide Technova through emerging market challenges and technological disruption." Her tone was polite but unyielding. Alice leaned forward, her palms resting on the mahogany table. "I understand the urgency," she began, voice calm but resonant. My strategic roadmap that I presented yesterday remains the blueprint for transformation. But with your permission, I'd like to update it to include a phased talent exchange program, leveraging our global tech alumni network to inject fresh perspectives while ensuring seamless leadership continuity. The investor exchanged a glance with his partner, eyebrows arching in interests. Brant's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. Over the next 20 minutes, Alice walked the board through revised projections, realigned KPIs, and newly negotiated partner agreements that demonstrated both adaptability and vision. When she concluded, there was a charged hush. Then the investor nodded firmly. Your proactive refinement confirms you're our choice. A collective exhale swept the room as applause replaced initial skepticism. Alice allowed herself a small, triumphant smile, knowing that once again, evidence of excellence had eclipsed prejudice and doubt. Jake's eyes darted across the stream of printed logs spread out on his desk, each line glowing with time-stamped precision as if the console itself had betrayed him to Alex's relentless scrutiny. His jaw clenched and unclenched, the cogs turning furiously in his mind as he tried to believe, wanted to believe, that there was some technical fluke. A fragment of code gone haywire. Anything but the brutal truth that he had weaponized his friends. VPN profile against him? His hands trembled as he swallowed, fingers brushing against the keyboard as though it might contain the escape sequence he desperately needed. I didn't mean to hurt you, he stammered, voice cracking beneath the weight of his own guilt. He ran a hand through his hair, tugging at the wires of trust they had woven together over a decade. It was supposed to be a stupid prank. One of those voice filter things I saw online. You know, impersonate a random caller, get a laugh. His shoulders slumped under Alex's unwavering gaze. The cheerful newsroom-like banter of their open plan office fading into an oppressive hush. Alex remained standing at the edge of Jake's cubicle, arms crossed tightly, eyes dark with betrayal. The midday sun, spilling through the slatted blinds, cast sharp bars across his face, and the air between them crackled with the tension of broken bonds. You called me the N-word, Alex said quietly, each syllable deliberate and measured. You chose that word, Jake, not some random slur, my worst fear. His voice trembled only slightly, betraying how deeply the words had cut. Jake looked down at his own shoes, the polished leather scuffed from hastily pacing the floor. I thought if you heard it and realized how horrible it sounded, you'd get it. Like realize how awful that word is. He laughed, but it was brittle, like snapping glass. I wanted to make you mad enough to finally talk about all those microaggressions you're always complaining about. He shook his head, disbelief at his own actions flickering across his face. But I messed up. A low murmur rippled through the office as a couple of colleagues glanced their way, sensing the charged confrontation. Alex inhaled sharply, forcing himself to stay standing, to confront the pain and not retreat to the privacy of his own cubicle. Your idea of making me talk was to degrade me, he said, taking a step closer so that the logs on the desk rustled beneath his fingertips. You used my trust and my skin to pull some cheap viral stunt. His voice rose just enough that nearby co-workers paused mid-key tap, curious but wary of witnessing a friendship fracture in real time. Jake pressed both hands to his face, leaning heavily against the edge of his desk as though bracing for impact. I know, he whispered, voice raw. I'm so sorry. I didn't think it through. I was being an asshole. He looked up, tears glinting at the corners of his eyes. And for the first time in years, Alex saw an honesty there that no code could fabricate. I promise I'll own this. I'll do the training, the workshops, whatever HR says. But Alex shook his head, the hurt in his eyes hardening into resolve. This isn't about training modules or sensitivity classes, he said. It's about you choosing to use hate as a joke at my expense. That choice has consequences. He slid the logs back into a neat stack. I'm reporting this to IT security and HR. They need to know that you did this. And how. Jake's breath hitched, the full weight of accountability settling onto his shoulders like a leaden shroud. He nodded, head bowed. I understand. he said, voice shaking. I deserve whatever comes. I'm sorry, Alex. I'm so sorry. The office lights flickered overhead as Alex turned and walked away, each step echoing down the corridor of cubicles that had once symbolized collaboration and camaraderie. Jake watched him go, chest heaving. The echo of his friend's footsteps a reminder that actions, digital or otherwise, could fracture more than just records and protocols. They could break trust, sometimes irreparably, leaving behind only the hard work of restitution and the uncertain hope of forgiveness. The next morning, Alex arrived at HR's glass-fronted suite with a thick manila folder under his arm, every page filled with packet captures, call logs, and annotated proxy traces. Sunlight glinted off the metal nameplate. Human Resources and IT Security. As he wrapped the doorframe and stepped inside, Carla, the HR director, looked up from her monitor with polite concern. Alex, come in. You said this was urgent. He laid the folder on her desk and opened it to the first sheet, the audio transcript with a racial slur flagged in red, followed by a network map showing Jake's device emerging from the very VPN node that had routed the hate call. Carla's eyes widened as she skimmed the evidence. Behind her, Tom from IT Security hovered, arms crossed, ready to enforce policy. Alex explained calmly but firmly how Jake had abused his VPN credentials, weaponizing a prank that crossed every line of professional conduct and personal decency. I trusted him with my access, Alex said, voice steady despite the lingering ache of betrayal. He used it to demean me. I want this on record, and I want consequences. Carla glanced at Tom, who already had a ticket open for unauthorized malicious use of company network. Within the hour, Jake was summoned to a private conference room. He entered with downcast eyes, greeted only by a low table flanked by Carla, Tom, and a slender legal counsel named Miriam. Alex remained silent in the hallway, overhearing the door click shut behind the two of them. Inside, Jake's voice trembled as he offered the same apology he'd made at his desk, but this time facing the full weight of corporate authority. Carla listened with a compassionate yet resolute gaze. Jake, she said, we appreciate your willingness to admit wrongdoing, but joking is not a defense when it's hate speech. She tapped the folder. This evidence triggers our zero-tolerance policy. You will be placed on unpaid suspension for 4 weeks, pending a full investigation. You're required to complete diversity and inclusion training, network security, retraining, and a written apology to Alex and the entire team. Jake nodded, swallowing hard. I understand, he whispered. I'll do it. Legal counsel Miriam slid a form across the table, detailing the sanctions and the conditions for his return. Sign here, she said gently, pen poised. Jake's hand shook as he signed. Tom from IT Security then spoke. Your VPN privileges are revoked effective immediately, and you'll receive a new restricted profile once you complete the remedial courses. Jake's head bowed. Later that afternoon, Carlo escorted Alex into the same conference room. Jake sat alone by the window, shoulders squared, staring at the floor. Alex took the seat opposite him. For a tense moment, neither spoke. Finally, Jake looked up and extended a laminated card his trembling hands had prepared. It read, I apologize for my words, my actions, and the harm I inflicted. I will earn back your trust. Alex accepted it quietly. He studied Jake's eyes. There was raw remorse there, but also resolve. Carla re-entered and nodded approvingly. Thank you both for addressing this professionally. I hope we can move forward. Alex closed his folder. I appreciate HR's swift action, he said. I hope Jake learns from this. As they left the room, Jake lingered behind for a moment, then caught Alex's eye. No words passed between them. Only the solemn exchange of two colleagues, forever changed by a moment of cruelty, now guided by accountability, and the slim hope of true reconciliation. The morning sunlight filtered through the cafe's large front windows as Alex took his seat at the corner table, nursing a steaming latte and watching the door with a mix of apprehension and resolve. It had been 2 months since HR had suspended Jake, since the VPN profile had been revoked, since the team stormed the conference room with policies and forms and remedial training mandates. In that time, Jake had completed every diversity workshop, every sensitivity module, every security seminar HR had demanded. He'd even volunteered at the local community center's anti-bullying programs, speaking to young coders about the real-world harm that words and data misuse could cause. Still, Alex had kept his distance, professional, polite, but guarded. Today, they had agreed to meet. No managers, no witnesses, just two old friends sitting down to see if anything genuine could grow from the ashes of betrayal. The bell above the door jingled, and Jake stepped in, wearing the same thoughtful crinkle around his eyes that Alex remembered from their college days, only now tempered by a weariness that spoke of sleepless nights and hard reckonings. He spotted Alex and offered a tentative smile before slipping into the seat opposite. For a moment, they simply regarded each other across the table. Alex's jaw firm, Jake's shoulders squared but tense. The cafe's gentle buzz, coffee machines, low conversation, distant jazz, formed a soft backdrop to their uneasy reunion. Jake cleared his throat, eyes flicking to the latte in Alex's hand. "Thanks for meeting me," he began, voice low. "I know I don't deserve your trust." Alex set his cup down, watching the steam dissipate. "I wasn't sure I'd come," he admitted quietly, "but I needed to see you try." He laid out the leather-bound notebook Jake had given him, a journal full of reflections, apology letters, and notes from every workshop. Jake's hand hovered over it, brushing the cover with reverent fingers. "I wrote every day," Jake said, voice catching, "about what I did, why it mattered, how it felt to face that security screen and realize I'd hurt the person I trusted most. I wanted to understand my own blind spots." Jake unfolded a second sheet of paper, an image of his own handwriting spelling out a public apology he had posted on the company's internal social feed, then deleted at Alex's request. "I posted this to the entire team," he said, "and I asked each person I'd worked with to share. One time, they felt underestimated because of their identity. We had dozens of stories in the first hour. It was painful but necessary." Alex read the lines, noting the raw honesty, admission of privilege, acknowledgement of bias, and the promise of sustained action beyond mere compliance. Alex looked up slowly, meeting Jake's earnest gaze. "That took courage," he said, "but courage alone doesn't fix a broken bond." He traced a finger around the latte's rim as Jake waited, shoulders drawn in by hope. "I've seen change in you," Alex continued, "and I respect the work you've done. But trust isn't something you can workshop into place. It's earned over time." He paused, letting the weight of those words hang in the space between them. "I'm willing to try, as long as you keep showing up, keep doing the work, and keep acknowledging that I'm more than a target for a prank." Jake nodded, relief and determination mingling in his expression. He reached into his jacket pocket and produced a slip of paper. Details of a joint presentation at next month's tech symposium on ethical coding and inclusive teams, co-led by both of them. "I propose we speak together," he said, voice soft. "We can share your perspective on how data abuse feels, and my perspective on how a single mistake can catalyze real change. If you'll have me." Alex leaned back, considering. The invitation was bold, vulnerable, an olive branch in code and words. After a heartbeat, Alex extended his hand across the table. Jake clasped it firmly. As they rose to leave, the cafe's midday light seemed to brighten, casting their joined hands in a hopeful glow. They walked out together into the bustling street, side by side but not shoulder to shoulder, each man carrying the memories of what had been broken and the weight of what could still be rebuilt. Behind them, the coffee-scented sanctuary faded into the rhythm of traffic and distant chimes. But ahead lay a path neither would travel alone. Because trust, Alex realized, could indeed be rebuilt. Not in a single meeting or apology, but in 1,000 small moments of accountability, respect, and shared purpose.